Okay, we're going to learn how to divide polynomials. First, let's go old school. If you remember back to elementary school, 13 goes in the house. 5 is over here. How many times does 5 go into 13? Twice. Notice what we do with this number up top. If you remember, 2 is multiplied by 5 and we place it in the second row. So we put 10 there. And everything in the second row is going to be subtracted. So 13 minus 10 is 3. And remember back in the day when you didn't put a decimal point and just stopped and called that the remainder? That's actually what we're going to do kind of with what we're doing. So the remainder, in this case, is that number. The dividend is in the house. The quotient is up there and the divisor is here. And how we would write our final answer if this was our problem would be the answer is 2 plus, I like to put the remainder divided by the divisor. In this case, 2 3/5. 2 3/5 is the same thing as 13/5. Now what we'll be attempting is a little bit tougher than long division with numbers, but we're going to use long division with polynomials. So again, you got to know what goes in the house here. X cubed plus 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. And we're dividing by x minus 1. We'll put that in parentheses just so we know that we are dividing by both of those terms. So now you're looking at the first term of the divisor and the first term that you're dividing into. To decide what goes up top, those are the two things you're looking at. So you're going x goes into x to the third. How many times? Oftentimes the first time someone says this, they might say 2 times, but I'd say if you multiply by x squared times x is x to the third. I'm going to put the x squared in what I call the x squared column. You see, these are all the x squareds. These are going to be all the constants to first degree, and then these are going to be all the constants. So then we're going to multiply x squared times both those terms. You get x to the third minus negative 1 times x squared is minus x squared. So I'm going to now subtract both of these terms. So everything in that row gets subtracted. I like to go ahead and distribute the negative. Just makes it easier to do the subtraction. That goes away. 4 plus 1 is 5x squared. Go ahead and bring down the next term. That makes sense here. You can bring both down if you want to. And then we're looking at this term and this term. We're saying x goes into 5x squared how many times? And so you'd say plus 5x. Now notice I'm in the x column here, so that's where my quotient goes in that case. Go ahead and multiply that by the terms here. You get 5x squared. Negative 1 times 5x is minus 5x. I'm going to subtract both of those terms. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and distribute the negative. And so when you do that, you get that goes away. You get positive 2x. We're going to bring down the next term. And we'll look at this first term here and x. So x times 1 is 2x. In this case, it would be 2. So I'm going to say plus 2 up top. Just multiply that by both those terms. Write it down below. You get 2x minus 2. You're going to subtract both of those. So we go and distribute. And I get, that goes away. 2 plus 2 is 4. So 4 is my remainder. My final answer would be x squared plus 5x plus 2, that's the quotient, plus, I like to put the remainder of 4 divided by the divisor of x minus 1. That's how you do long division. Let me mention one other thing there. If the remainder is 0, it's a factor. You can see the remainder is not 0, so unfortunately this is not a factor. That's really what we're going to use this for. You might wonder, well, why are we dividing polynomials? Well, we're trying to find factors. And this is going to be a method that we're going to use to find factors. Since the remainder is not 0, that is not a factor. And another hint here is you are supposed to organize by descending order of degree. If you're missing a term, please put in a 0. So when you try this one, we're divided by a polynomial. It looks really tough to start with. We say 8x to the 4th plus, you see we're missing something right here? There's x to the 4th, x squared, x, and a constant. So you really need to put plus 0 x cubed here. You want to kind of keep your things very organized. Plus 6x squared minus 31x plus 1. And we're divided by 2x squared minus x plus 2. Again, all the things are being divided right here. So it's just like the first time we did this. We looked at the first term over here and the first term here. We're asking ourselves, 2x squared goes into 8x to the 4th how many times? And so 2 times 4 is 8. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th, so that would be 4x squared. So I'm going to put that in the x squared column here. I'm going to go ahead and multiply this out. So we multiply that by all 3 terms there. So you get 8x to the 4th, no surprise, minus 4x squared. That's cubed, right? That's x cubed. Negative x times 4x squared is x cubed. That makes sense. And then plus 8x squared. So we're going to subtract each one of those terms. Subtract, subtract, subtract. And this goes away. We get 4x cubed minus 2x squared minus 31x. And so then we're looking at this term and this term. 2x squared times what is 4x cubed? So we'd say plus 2x. And then multiply 2x times all 3 of those terms. So we get 4x cubed minus 2x squared plus 4x. And what's nice is this goes away. This goes away when you subtract. I guess I should put that. Subtract, subtract, subtract. And so then we have negative 31x minus 4x is negative 35x. Don't forget to bring down the plus 1. Now here's where it gets a little strange here. 2x squared goes into negative 35x how many times? Well, x squared is already bigger than x to the first. When this cancels, it causes a little issue. There's not going to be anything right here because we've already gone lower degree. Our remainder is lower than our divisor as far as degree. So we're done with the problem. And the answer would be 4x squared plus 2x plus, I always put the remainder, negative 35x plus 1 divided by the divisor. Just do one last problem. Be careful on this. This really means division. You're dividing by x by 3. It takes that whole quantity and brings it down to the denominators. So we have 2x cubed minus 7x squared plus, you see we're missing a term here. There's no x squared term in between these, so I'm going to say 0x. There's no x term, I should say. And then here we have x minus 3. And this one should be easy. So x times 1 is 2x to the third. That would be 2x squared. Multiply, put down here, minus 6x squared. We're going to subtract both of those. We get negative x squared plus 0x. Go ahead and bring down that next term. X times what is negative x squared minus x plus 3x. We're going to subtract both of those terms. And we get negative 3x plus 5. And x times what is negative 3x, so I'd say minus 3. And we have negative 3x plus 9. We get 14 is our remainder. And so our final answer would be 2x squared minus x minus 3 plus 14, our remainder, divided by the divisor of x minus 3. So again, we did not find a factor. If that was 0, we would have found a factor here. Let's look at another one here. So in this one, you can see, if you look at the pattern, x to the 6th, x to the 4th, x squared, and x to the 0, or constant here. And x squared and x to the 0, or constant here. So they're all even degrees. I think in this problem, it's going to be easiest to not put in the zeros, because the pattern, we should never have an odd answer here. So I'm just going to write this as is. It won't hurt to put in the zeros, it'll just be a few columns that you won't use. And just from recognizing the pattern. So this would be 3x to the 4th. So we get 3x to the 6th, and then let's distribute to both. Minus 9x to the 4th. We go ahead and subtract. We get negative x to the 4th plus 7x squared. X squared times 1 is negative x to the 4th, negative x squared, plus 3x squared. We're going to subtract both those, and we get 4x squared minus 12. And so we're going to multiply by plus 4. So we get 4x squared minus 12. We're going to subtract both those terms. And when you do that, you get a remainder of 0, finally. So our answer would be 3x to the 4th minus x squared plus 4. So this one, we could go a little further and do our answer to the question, what's the answer? But if this is one of the factors, you should know the other factor here. If I multiply this answer times this, I should get this. And it has 4 of those. That's a factor, and that's a factor, basically. And if you didn't get a find the solution from here if you wanted to show off. But that's how you do long division polynomials.